I was 26 when my family decided I no longer belonged. It wasn't some big dramatic event. No yelling, no fight. Just a quiet Sunday dinner at the ranch-style house I grew up in. The kind of dinner we'd had 100 times before. Pot roast, mashed potatoes, awkward small talk. I was helping Mom carry dishes to the table when she dropped it on me. "Jessie," she said, way too casually. "You'll need to start clearing out your room this week." I froze, still holding the gravy boat. "What?" Dad didn't even glance up from carving the meat. Mom kept going like she was announcing a new grocery list. "Your brother and Megan are moving in next weekend. They'll need your room for the baby." The room fell silent. I looked around the table. Dad pretending to be focused on slicing beef, my brother Eric avoiding eye contact, and Megan, all smiles, rubbing her pregnant belly like she was the star of a Hallmark movie. "You're giving them my room?" I asked, stunned. "Where am I supposed to go?" "You're 26, Mom said, giving me that patronizing little smile I'd grown to hate. "It's time you learned to make sacrifices for family. That's what sisters do." Sacrifices? I gave up moving out after college to help when Dad had surgery. I picked up extra shifts to help cover the bills. I drove Mom to her checkups and watched Eric disappear on weekend trips while I stayed behind to handle the house. And now I was being told no, expected to move out so Eric and his girlfriend could have my room. Like it was just that simple. "Is this a joke?" I asked, my voice cracking. Eric shrugged like it wasn't a big deal. "You can sleep on the couch for now." The couch? In my own home. I didn't say another word. I excused myself before I cried in front of them. I walked up the stairs to my room and closed the door behind me. The posters I'd hung in high school still clung to the walls. My bookshelf was full of dog-eared paperbacks and photos of memories I'd quietly carried for years. This wasn't just a room. It was my life. And they were asking me to pack it up like some temporary guest. That night, Mom knocked on the door like everything was fine. "It won't be forever, sweetheart. Just until they get on their feet." "How long is that supposed to be?" I asked, not bothering to hide the bitterness. "As long as it takes," she said. "You'll understand when you're a mother. Family comes first." But in this family, that rule only applied to everyone but me. The next morning, I loaded my car with what little I could. Some clothes, my laptop, and a box of things too personal to leave behind. Nobody stopped me. They didn't even notice I was leaving. I drove around for hours with no destination. The truth was, I didn't have anywhere to go. I'd spent years pouring my paycheck into the household. Rent was out of reach, and the friends I could have stayed with, well, I'd lost touch while babysitting their responsibilities. Eventually, I pulled into a grocery store parking lot and parked in the far corner. I leaned back in the seat and pulled my jacket tight, realizing I was about to spend my first night sleeping in my car. While my family slept warm and comfortable in a house I helped hold together. I didn't cry. Not that night. I was too numb. The next day, I came back to grab a few more things. My old room was already open. Eric and Megan were measuring the walls, debating what color to paint the nursery. "Oh, good, Jess," Megan chirped. "Could you help us move the dresser? We want to start painting today." I stared at her, too stunned to speak. Mom popped her head in. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be. It's for the baby." I didn't respond. I turned and walked out, and this time, I didn't come back. Not for holidays, not for birthdays, not even when Dad's health got worse again. They had made their choice. I was the placeholder. Useful, invisible, replaceable. And they didn't just lose a daughter that day, they lost the only one who ever truly showed up when it mattered. But I wasn't gone forever. Years would pass, and when they came crawling back, panicked and desperate, it wouldn't be for love. It would be because they needed me. What they didn't know? I had changed, and I wasn't coming back the same. The first night I spent sleeping in my car, I told myself it was temporary. I parked in the back corner of a 24-hour pharmacy, hoping the security cameras and parking lot lights would keep me safe. I laid my coat over myself and used my duffel bag as a pillow. The seatbelt buckle jabbed into my ribs no matter how I shifted. My phone battery was almost dead, and I had no charger that worked in the car. Still, I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't heartbroken, but because I was done crying for people who hadn't cried for me. For the next 3 weeks, my car was home. I rotated between store parking lots, truck stops, and when I was lucky, the back alley behind a bakery where the owner didn't ask questions. I showered at the gym I'd been paying a discounted membership for since college. I kept my work uniform folded neatly in the back seat and tried to keep it from wrinkling too much. At my retail job, nobody noticed anything. I smiled when I needed to and nodded when customers asked for help. I learned how to function while hollow inside. I had no safety net, no family to crash with, no savings. Every spare dollar I'd ever had gone into helping my parents cover bills, fixing Dad's truck when it broke down, or buying groceries so we could make it through the week. I wasn't just broke. I was discarded. It was a Wednesday afternoon when my manager, Carol, pulled me aside and handed me a flyer. "You're smart, Jessie," she said. "You deserve more than this. There's a woman I know renting out a room above her bakery, cheap too. You should call." I almost didn't. But desperation has a way of pushing you toward options you wouldn't dare consider before. The place was tiny. Just one room above a bakery that smelled like cinnamon and yeast every morning. The floor slanted slightly to the left, and the radiator groaned like it hated being alive. But it had a lock. It had walls, it had heat, and it was mine. I used my first full paycheck to buy a secondhand mattress, a thrift store lamp, and a little hot plate for making soup. I stretched peanut butter and crackers into meals, and spent my nights curled up with my laptop, applying to every office job that didn't require a degree I didn't have. Some nights, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if they even noticed I was gone, if anyone back home was lying in bed missing me, or if they were too busy painting over the walls I once called my own. Months passed. The phone calls from my family slowed, then stopped. No one checked in, no birthday messages, no "Are you okay" texts. It was as if I'd never existed. And somehow, that hurt more than being kicked out. But I survived. I picked up a second job at a coffee shop around the corner, working morning shifts before heading to retail in the afternoon. I learned how to fix broken zippers, unclog a drain, and budget every cent down to the last roll of toilet paper. And eventually, slowly, I started to build. I got hired as a part-time admin assistant at a local marketing firm. I didn't have the polished resume or fancy degree, but I had hustle. I showed up early, stayed late, and kept my head down. The work wasn't glamorous, filing, scheduling, managing supplies, but it paid more and came with benefits. My first paycheck there felt like a trophy. I opened a savings account and deposited $50 into it. The teller smiled like it was no big deal, but to me it was the beginning of something real. The following year, I was promoted to full-time. Then again, the year after. I took night classes, earned certifications, and learned to use software I'd never even heard of before. I became indispensable. Meanwhile, my room above the bakery turned into a cozy little apartment. I repainted the walls a soft sage green. I hung thrifted curtains and added string lights across the ceiling. It was still small, still drafty in the winter, but it smelled like coffee and freedom. I stopped checking my family's social media. I stopped hoping for texts that never came. I stopped looking at my phone every night, wondering if anyone missed me. But every once in a while, a memory would sneak in. A birthday cake we made together. Dad teaching me how to fix a tire. Mom humming in the kitchen. I'd shut my eyes and let it pass like a ghost. One night, after getting off work late, I passed by a community center with a volunteers needed sign in the window. On impulse, I walked in and asked how I could help. That one choice led me to mentoring teenage girls who reminded me of myself. Quiet, eager to be useful, desperate to be loved. I listened to them, shared my story, and reminded them that being treated like an afterthought didn't mean they were one. Helping them helped me. It reminded me that I wasn't broken, I'd just been planted in the wrong soil. And now I was finally growing. By the 5th year, I had a stable income, a tiny retirement account, and more peace than I'd ever felt under my parents' roof. They still hadn't reached out, not until one rainy morning, when my phone buzzed with 47 missed calls. It was my mother, then Josh, then Kayla, and finally, one text, simple and cold. "Please, Jessie, we need you. It's about Dad." I stared at it for a long time. They needed me now. But the real question was, where were they when I needed them? The message sat on my phone screen like it was daring me to respond. "Please, Jessie, we need you. It's about Dad." I read it 10 times. Each time my heart beat a little faster, my palms a little sweatier. I hadn't heard from my brother Josh in over 5 years, not since the day I drove away with my trunk full of memories and a heart full of betrayal. And now suddenly, he needed me? I stared at the text as if it might dissolve into smoke. Part of me wanted to delete it and move on. Another part, the quieter, more damaged part, still longed for a connection, for a reason to believe things might be different now. But I wasn't the same girl they kicked out, not anymore. Still, against my better judgment, I called. The phone barely rang once before Josh picked up. "Jess?" He breathed like he wasn't sure it was really me. Thank God. I didn't respond right away. I could hear commotion in the background. Voices, a TV, maybe even kids crying. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice flat. "It's Dad," he said, his tone shifting. He had a stroke. A bad one." My throat tightened. "When?" "2 weeks ago." I blinked. "And you're calling me now?" There was a pause. "We didn't think it would get this bad." "He's not speaking much. He barely recognizes anyone. Mom's overwhelmed. Kayla's got the kids. We've been doing what we can, but—" "You need help," I finished for him. "That's why you called." He didn't deny it. I hung up without another word. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on my couch, hugging my knees, staring out the window at the flickering street lamp. I remembered the man who taught me how to ride a bike, who made Sunday morning pancakes shaped like hearts, who once told me I was the glue that held the family together. But where had he been when I got thrown out? Where had that love gone? By morning, I made a decision. Not for them, for me. I needed closure. I needed to see it with my own eyes. I needed to face the wreckage and decide for myself if there was anything left worth saving. The drive back to Maple Hollow felt surreal. The town hadn't changed much. Same old diners, same overgrown playground near the church, same crooked welcome sign missing the E. But everything felt smaller now, like it had shrunk in my absence. When I pulled into the driveway of my childhood home, I barely recognized it. The once white paint had faded to a dirty beige. The flower beds were full of weeds. The porch sagged more than I remembered, and the welcome mat was missing entirely. I knocked on the door. Mom opened it with red-rimmed eyes and a gasp. "Jessie," she whispered. She looked older, thinner. Her hair had grayed at the temples. But the way she looked at me, like I was a lifeline, was something I'd never seen before. I didn't hug her. Inside, the house was dim and quiet. I could hear the slow, irregular beeping of a medical monitor from the living room. It was the only sound besides the ticking of the old wall clock I thought they'd gotten rid of years ago. Dad was in his recliner, eyes half open, face slack. I barely recognized him. His skin looked too pale. His hands trembled against the blanket that covered his legs. When our eyes met, something flickered, but it vanished too quickly to catch. "Hey, Dad," I said softly, unsure if he even knew who I was. He blinked, then turned away. I stood there, rooted, my emotions torn between grief and numbness. Josh entered from the kitchen, Kayla trailing behind him. She carried a toddler on her hip and had a phone tucked between her shoulder and ear. She gave me a brief nod, then went back to whatever call she was on. Josh gestured toward the hallway. "Can we talk?" I followed him, still dazed. In the kitchen, papers were spread across the table. Medical bills, mortgage statements, prescriptions, insurance forms. It looked like someone had lost a game of financial Jenga and scattered the pieces in panic. "We're drowning," Josh said, rubbing his temples. "The bills are out of control. We took out a second mortgage, but it's not enough. We've used up the savings. We thought he'd recover, but he's not getting better." I waited. He didn't say it, so I did. "You want me to move back in?" He looked down. "It's just temporary. We need someone to help with Dad. Mom's exhausted. I can't keep missing work. Kayla's got her hands full." I laughed, short and bitter. "So the sister you tossed out like trash is suddenly convenient again?" Josh flinched. "Jess, come on. That was years ago. We didn't mean—" "You didn't mean to hurt me?" I interrupted. "Or you didn't think I'd remember?" He didn't answer. I looked around the kitchen. The same wallpaper, the same cracked linoleum floor, but the warmth was gone. The soul of this house had faded, just like the photos that used to hang on the fridge. "I'm not coming back," I said quietly. Josh's shoulders slumped. "We're desperate." "I know," I said, "but desperation isn't love." I turned to leave, but he grabbed my arm. "Please, if not for us, for Dad." That gave me pause. I walked back to the living room. sat beside the man who had once carried me on his shoulders through 4th of July parades. I took his hand in mine, and he didn't pull away. "Do you know who I am?" I whispered. He blinked, and then, slowly, nodded. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I blinked them away. "I love you, Dad," I said, "but I can't fix what they broke." I kissed his forehead and stood. Outside, the wind felt colder, harsher, but it carried something else too. Clarity. They could ask. They could beg, but they didn't get to own me anymore. I was no longer the girl waiting for love. I was the woman who had found her own. The calls didn't stop after that. 3 days passed since I walked out of my childhood home, and still, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Missed calls from Mom, voice messages from Josh, even Kayla left one. Her voice tight with something halfway between regret and desperation. But I didn't answer. I couldn't. Not yet. They thought they could summon me back into their world just because they were falling apart. As if I'd been sitting around, waiting for their permission to exist again. As if the past didn't matter now that it was inconvenient for them. But the past had teeth. And it still bit. By the 5th day, I came home from work to find an envelope shoved under my door. My name was written across it in my mother's delicate, overly formal script, like it was an invitation to tea rather than a guilt grenade. Inside was a letter, short, no apology, no reflection, just, "Your father's getting worse. We're losing the house, please. For the family." That word again. Family. A label they only remembered when they needed something. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slow circles, and tried to imagine what it would take to make me go back. What would they have to say? What would they have to do? Would anything actually be enough? The next morning, I made a decision. Not to return. Not to forgive. But to get the truth. I drove back to Fairview. The town felt grayer than I remembered, as if it, too, had aged badly without care. When I arrived, the house was quieter than last time. Fewer lights on, no sound from the TV. Josh and Kayla were sitting at the kitchen table, papers spread out in front of them again, but this time it wasn't bills. It was foreclosure notices. Mom stood by the sink, her face drawn, hands gripping a dish towel like it was the only thing holding her together. They all looked up when I stepped in, like they hadn't been sure I'd come at all. "Jessie," Mom breathed, almost like a prayer. I ignored the greeting. "You're losing the house?" Josh nodded stiffly. "The second mortgage is overdue. The medical bills, it's more than we can handle. The bank's already sent warning letters." Kayla spoke next. "We didn't want it to come to this. We tried everything. Everything except telling the truth years ago." I folded my arms. "And what exactly do you want from me?" They didn't hesitate this time. That was almost worse. "We need help paying off the mortgage," Josh said, "just to buy time, until we figure things out." Mom added, "It's not just about us, sweetheart. This house, it's where you grew up, where all our memories are." I almost laughed. My memories? They had buried my memories the moment they handed my room over like a gift basket. "Let me get this straight," I said. "You kicked me out of here to make room for a nursery. I spent weeks sleeping in my car. You didn't call, you didn't check in, you let me disappear. But now that the roof's caving in, I'm suddenly part of the team again?" Kayla looked down. Josh muttered, "We made mistakes." "You made choices," I corrected. "Ones you never apologized for." There was a long silence. I could hear the old refrigerator humming, the wind brushing dead leaves against the window. Then Mom said something that almost broke me. "I thought you were stronger than that." My heart stopped. "You think I left because I was weak?" I asked, voice low. "I think," she said carefully, "you could have stayed, helped more, waited until things settled. Families go through rough patches." My eyes narrowed. "Families don't throw their children out like trash and call it a rough patch." Josh stood up. "Jess, this isn't helping." "No," I said, cutting him off. "This is the first time I've said anything in years. You're going to hear it." I stepped closer to the table, letting my words settle like dust. "You didn't just forget me. You erased me. You chose comfort. You chose convenience. And now you want me to dig you out." They didn't speak. Even Kayla had the sense to stay silent. "You're right about one thing," I said. "I am stronger now, strong enough to walk away from this mess without flinching." I turned toward the door, but Mom's voice stopped me. "What about your father?" she asked quietly. "He's still your dad. He needs you." I paused. That hit harder than I wanted it to. I visited him, I said. I held his hand. I told him I loved him. That's more than anyone else here has done for me. And with that, I walked out. Back in my car, I sat for a long time, watching the sagging front porch where I'd spent summers with lemonade and late-night laughter. It looked different now, hollow, like the soul had been sucked out of it. Maybe it had. They wanted my money, my time, my energy. But they never wanted me, and now they didn't deserve me. But as I drove away, I knew it wasn't over. Not yet. They'd try again, they always did. But next time, I'd be ready, because this time I held the power. A few days passed, and for once the phone was quiet. No texts, no calls, no desperate letters. I thought maybe, just maybe, they finally understood. But deep down, I knew better. Sure enough, on Sunday morning, I found another envelope outside my apartment door. Same handwriting, no return address. Just my name, Jessie. Inside was a single sheet of paper, written neatly, almost like a business proposal. We're meeting at the house this Wednesday. All of us. Please come. It's time to talk options. Options. They still thought I was one of them. I tossed the letter on the table and stared at it while I ate breakfast. My eggs went cold. My coffee bitter. Options? The only option I could think of was walking away forever. But something kept nagging at me. Not hope. Not guilt. Curiosity. They had thrown me away, made me feel small for years, and now they were reaching out again. Why? Because they were drowning. And people always call the strong swimmer last. On Wednesday afternoon, I drove back to the house one final time. The porch sagged deeper than before. The flower beds were full of weeds. Even the welcome mat looked tired. Inside, they were all waiting. Mom, Josh, Kayla, and their 2 kids coloring quietly at the table like nothing was wrong. It was eerie. The calm before a storm. Jessie, Mom said, standing. Thank you for coming. I didn't say I was staying, I replied, stepping inside. Josh cleared his throat. Let's sit. We did. Around the same table where they once decided I didn't matter. Josh spoke first, flipping over a manila folder. Here's the truth. The bank gave us a final deadline. We have less than 30 days. If we can't pay off at least half the debt, they'll repossess the house. I looked at the number on the paper. It was steep, but not impossible. Not for someone who had worked 2 jobs for years, skipped vacations, budgeted every cent, and built a business from scratch. They knew I could cover it. That's why I was there. Kayla leaned in. We're not asking for charity. We'll sign a contract. We'll pay you back every month. Mom added, this is your home too. We're just asking for help to keep it in the family. That word again. Family. Family. The same family that let me freeze in a car while they painted my old room pastel yellow and called it a nursery. I stayed silent for a while. Long enough for Mom to fidget with the hem of her sweater. Then I pulled out a folder of my own and laid it flat on the table. Josh frowned. What's that? My offer, I said. Inside was a document I had drafted with a lawyer's help. A purchase agreement. I'll pay off the remaining debt, I said, in full. But in exchange, I want full ownership. The house becomes mine, legally, permanently. The silence was instant and heavy. Kayla's jaw dropped. Mom blinked in confusion. Josh's face flushed red. What? He snapped. You want to buy the house? From us? No, I corrected. From the bank. You already lost it. I'm just saving it from the auction block. But it's our family home, Mom protested. You made it clear years ago it wasn't mine, I said calmly. This is just making it official. Josh pushed away from the table. This is revenge. No, I said, standing up. This is reality. I looked them all in the eye, one by one. You didn't call me because you missed me. You called because you expected me to rescue you. Like always. And I almost did. But then I remembered every Sunday dinner you held without me. Every birthday you forgot. Every voicemail you never returned. You gave me nothing but silence. And now I'm offering you a second chance. Just not the one you were hoping for. Mom's eyes filled with tears. You'd really do this? Buy the house out from under us? I'm not throwing anyone out, I said. I'll give you 60 days to find somewhere else. Or, if you're willing to pay fair rent, you can stay. As tenants. Josh scoffed. You want us to pay you to live here? Yes, I said, because I paid the price for this house long before today. I turned and walked to the front door, my voice steady even though my heart was pounding. You can sign the agreement by Friday. Or not. Either way, I'm done being your safety net. I left them stunned, like statues trapped in the past. That evening, I sat on the balcony of my apartment, watching the sunset burn the sky orange and gold. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. They wanted me to save the house so they could keep pretending the past didn't matter. But I wasn't interested in erasing the past. I was interested in writing a new ending. On my terms. The days ticked by like a countdown. Friday came and went. No one signed the agreement, no calls, no texts. I should have been surprised. I wasn't. By Monday, the bank confirmed they had received my full payment. The house, the same one I was once exiled from, was now legally mine. The paperwork was filed, the debt cleared, and still nothing from them. I half expected an explosion, a dramatic confrontation, or some tearful plea. Instead, I got silence. And honestly, it felt like peace. Until the following Thursday when a knock came at my apartment door. It was Kayla. Alone. She looked different. Tired, like someone who hadn't slept well in weeks. Her coat was too thin for the weather, and her hands were shaking slightly as she clutched a folded letter. I didn't invite her in. I just waited. "Josh doesn't know I'm here," she started. I nodded. She took a shaky breath. "We're moving out next week. We found a small rental 2 towns over." I said nothing. She handed me the letter. "This is from your mom. She asked me to give it to you. She didn't think you'd open the door if it was her." Smart guess. I took the envelope but didn't open it. Kayla hesitated. "Look, I know we hurt you. I was part of it, and I'm sorry. Truly. I didn't understand back then. I do now." Her voice cracked a little. "I never wanted you to be pushed out. I just went along with it because it was easier. Because I was scared. But I see what that did to you. And I respect what you've built. I really do." I looked her in the eye. "It took you losing the house to realize that?" She flinched but didn't deny it. "Sometimes it takes losing everything to finally see what matters." I didn't respond. She took the hint. As she turned to leave, she said quietly, "You deserved better. I hope you know that." I closed the door without saying goodbye. Later that night, I opened the letter. Mom's handwriting was neat, careful, the same way it had always been on birthday cards, back when birthdays still meant something. "Dear Jessie, I won't beg. I know I have no right to. I just want you to know that not a day goes by that I don't regret what we did. What I let happen. We took your love for granted. Your strength, your loyalty. I told myself you were strong enough to handle anything, but I never asked if you should have to. I never thought about what you were sacrificing. And when you left, I told myself you'd come back when you cooled off. But deep down I knew I'd lost you. I just didn't know how to say I was sorry. I still don't. All I can say is thank you for everything you gave us, for everything you built. And I hope one day we'll earn even a piece of the forgiveness you deserve. Mom." I folded the letter carefully and placed it in my desk drawer, not to reread later, but because it felt like closure. Not forgiveness, but a closing door. The following week I visited the house, my house now. The front yard was littered with moving boxes and a lopsided "for rent" sign Josh had probably slapped up as an afterthought. I parked across the street and waited until I saw the U-Haul pull away. Then I stepped inside. It was quiet. Still. The walls looked smaller than I remembered, the hallways narrower. Memories tried to climb out of the corners. Dinners at the table, fights in the hallway, whispered secrets in the dark. But I didn't let them take over. This wasn't their house anymore. It was mine. And I had plans. The following months moved fast. I gutted the place, ripped out the old carpets, painted over the memories, knocked down the walls, literally and figuratively. I didn't turn it into a family home. I turned it into a space for others like me, the Haven Project. A transitional living center for women who had been displaced by their families. Young women trying to get on their feet, find jobs, get therapy, rebuild. I partnered with the local youth center, got grants, poured my savings into it. The same room they kicked me out of now held 2 beds, fresh sheets, and a tiny desk covered in affirmation cards and job listings. I didn't tell Mom, or Josh, or Kayla. They found out through the local paper. I heard later that Mom cried when she saw the story, that Josh said nothing at all. It didn't matter. Because I didn't build this for them. I built it for the version of me who sat crying in a freezing car, wondering what she had done to be so easy to discard. I built it for the girls who came through our doors with garbage bags for suitcases and pain in their eyes they didn't know how to name. And I built it because no one should have to earn love. Not from blood. Not from anyone. One evening, I walked through the finished space just before our first residents moved in. I stood in what used to be the dining room, now a bright, common area filled with soft chairs and bookshelves. A place for conversation, laughter, healing. I looked around and felt it deep in my bones. This is what home feels like, not the place where you're tolerated, the place where you're chosen, and I chose this life. Not the one they tried to trap me in. Not the one where I was only useful if I was silent. I chose me, and I've never looked back.